We are so grateful to be supported by sponsors like our friends at Haney and Company. You know, we all know that in today's complex financial landscape, having a trusted advisor can make all the difference. Since 1960, Haney and Company has been providing comprehensive accounting services to a diverse range of clients, from small businesses to large corporations. With nearly 400 professionals across 13 locations, they offer services in tax, audit, business consulting, and client advisory. In fact, their commitment to excellence has earned them recognition from Accounting Today and Forbes magazines. At Haney and Company, though, it's not just about balancing books. It's about building lasting relationships based on trust and mutual growth. So visit HaneyCPAs.com. That's HaneyCPAs.com to learn how they can support your business's financial journey.
We are so grateful to be supported by these community champions: Sales MD, Team Friday, Realist Lab, Kiana Patterson, Diego Chavez, Jer Boucher, Heather Ryder, Janine Sua, Lily Roca, and Steve Kernan.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Happy Friday. We're into June now. And you know what June is? It's my birthday month. Although I think I said this to a friend the other day, I think I'm going to stop worrying about posting about the age number. I just don't think I'm going to talk about the age number. No, I don't care. 57 this year. 57 glorious, grateful, intense, exciting, interesting years. My dad used to famously say to us, the best a man can hope for in life is to live in interesting times. And the implication there that people would misinterpret from my dad was, because he was pretty optimistic guy, was that he meant like interesting times as in that's great. Like we all want to live at interesting times, right? And what he actually meant, and he would often reference this when we would be going through adversities, or the world would be tilting on its axis, so to speak. And he would remind us that, hey, I never said they were guaranteed to be good times. I just said that the best a man can hope for is to live in interesting times, right? And I'm sure he took that from some like English literature resource at some point. It wasn't like necessarily an original thought of my dad's, but he was a great storyteller, and that was a story that stuck with all of us through our lives. And here I am at 57 almost, still referencing that. Many, many years. My mom and my dad both passed away back in 2006, 2007. So it's now been, goodness, right? 18, 19 years, like something like that. Yeah, 19 years since my dad passed away, which is insane to think that it's been that long. But indeed, that's where we're at. And yet here I am still repeating his stories and passing on these little tidbits of family wisdom to all of you. So enjoy it and use it for what you will. But today, this is what's been on my mind. And it's directly, it's funny. This is a great kind of reference point for the show, for our Entrepreneurial Thinker show, which is the whole point. I want to come on here and I want to give you some insights kind of behind the scenes / takeaways from the episodes that drop each week. And so in this particular case, this is a topic, a theme that's been on my mind that's inspired by a recent former guest, Thomas Logstrup Riebs, our beloved Danish friend here in Los Angeles. And it is rooted in something that he referred to me, a book, which he strongly suggested I read. And then ironically, I started listening to it this past weekend on a walk, and it's been months since he had recommended it to me, and my mind is scrambled eggs sometimes in life. And so I could not remember that he had referred the book to me. And yet, like a chapter in, there had been like 3 references to some amazing projects in Denmark. And I was like, okay, wait a minute. Thomas must have referred this book to me, right? So I'm referring this book to you all today. It's called How Big Things Get Done. And I'm not even going to attempt to quickly try and name the author. We'll include it here. You'll see his name. It is a beautifully Danish name, and therefore I would probably butcher it trying to describe it to you. And let's just say it's written by this gentleman and by one of his research partners. And I would almost give you the subtext and say that the real story is that's a great hooky title, How Big Things Get Done, because the actual story is, the subtext is really about how big things don't get done, or how when big things do get done, they tend to get done poorly, inefficiently, ineffectively, not cost effectively, and kind of very sloppily, and kind of over budget, over time, under expectations. And that is actually the norm. So I've thought to myself a few times since I started reading the book last weekend that the book could have been titled differently and it could have just told us how things don't get done. But I don't think the negative intention there would have been as attractive to prospective readers. And by default, we are learning, if we learn how things actually get done and how complicated they are and how inefficient our systems are as the norm, then we are effectively then learning how some people, some leaders, some organizations, some countries, some cities, some corporations do, in fact, figure out ways to navigate that inherent inefficiency to get things done. And that leads me to a couple of takeaways from both last week's episode, the one that is dropping this week with Sara Hicks, my new friend. We're going to be besties for life, we've decided, here in Los Angeles. Sara is an author, a leadership coach, a multiple-time former high-level big tech company executive, former founder, and successfully exited founder. Her company was acquired by a very large company, which she then went to work on. And as we talk about in the title of the episode, I say from billion user product builder to leadership whisperer is the title of this episode. I really hope you enjoy it. Sara is an incredibly pragmatically optimistic human being, which immediately draws her to me. There was a spiritual connection between us. Not surprising because she was referred to us to me to be on the show by another former alumnus of the show who we all love, Mickey Reynolds, here in Los Angeles. So I'm not surprised that Sara and I hit it off. But what she helped us understand is kind of we go through not just her journey, but we go through her insights and her experiences. She had a couple of takeaways. She had a really unique seat in the development of our entrepreneurial economy here in Los Angeles. And that won't mean as much to you folks that don't live here in Los Angeles. That's fine. That's a part of the story that we discussed just because we both have a shared history here. But she worked for some of the leading companies in the world in what I would call Internet 1.0 or the internet boom, the .com era. Those are the bunch of different ways that people have described this era of the middle to late 90s to say 2002, 2003. So 95 to like 2003, when essentially the internet was born commercially, when all of our lives changed in the ways that we now manifest online with our activities. But she worked for some of those earliest companies back then. And so she had just some incredible insights. And over the course of her career, to all you founders, no matter where you are listening, it has nothing to do with Los Angeles now, is the rest of the story goes into just some of the practical realities of how she has experienced and now coaches founders, entrepreneurs, executives to think about how they develop products, because she herself was involved in literally building products that eventually had billions of users. And yet she gives us some lessons on how to really understand that from a human perspective, right? So again, we talk a lot about the development of Los Angeles, and I'll argue that if you're in another city in another part of the country or in another part of the US, and you're thinking about how to develop and what hallmark pieces of your entrepreneurial economy are important in developing them, there are lessons to be learned in the Los Angeles part of this discussion that are still applicable to you potentially. But the second part is essentially injecting or reinserting the humanity into the pursuit of technology company and technology product building. We both kind of commiserate over the fact that we think that is an art that's been sadly lost in today's current crop of big tech bro CEOs and companies and products, and that everything has been kind of algorithmically washed aside into a digital purpose as opposed to the human purpose. And she mastered the bridge, right? Building digital products, but the early origin story of digital products. And so what was a takeaway for me was how both like available and sad how we started this industry and how it could be today is to us. So like what you'll learn listening to her is that we don't have to have the problems that we have today. Like these have been actual tactical product market choices by the companies, because the fundamental products that were built and the purposes for which they were built are still true. And actually, ironically, are probably coming back again in this desire to establish community and connection. So there's kind of then a sadness that goes with that, a tinge of longing for, wait a minute, what we built was serving the purpose that we all aspired to, which was to connect, to build relationships, to build community, to feel seen, to be creative, online, and yet we gave that all away in service of, I don't know what we got as consumers, just more stuff and more distraction. And we essentially gave up our privacy and our rights and all that stuff. So again, couple takeaways. One, obviously, some real insights on how to build great entrepreneurial economies in communities. They're here using Los Angeles as the example. And then secondly would be this idea of how we can build great digital products. And we have the foundations of great digital products that we could use in today's format, but we don't. And then another takeaway, and this kind of bleeds over to an episode that'll be coming up soon, which was recorded last week, but it'll come out, I think, the week after next. And that is with a local government leader here, Nithya Raman, who's the city council person here in Los Angeles for the district that I happen to live in. And as you would imagine, when having the opportunity to talk to a person who's one of the 14 or 15 people that lead what would be the 17th largest economy in the world. Los Angeles would be, if it was a country, the 17th largest economy in the world. There's a layer of complexity and hard things, and then therefore disappointment and disillusionment in government. And so ironically, this book from Thomas has kind of dropped into my life this week by random choice by me. And it has bridged my mental framework around the conversation that I had with Sara, and how Sara teaches us from a technology product, digital product standpoint, how to get hard things built and how to get hard things done. But then the conversation with Nithya, Councilperson Raman, that's coming up, which this you could say is a teaser for that, right? That conversation is going to talk to us about the pragmatic difficulties of getting things done. Not just here in our district in Los Angeles, but in cities and in countries and governments anywhere, right? And the book reminds us that this isn't necessarily like kind of a failure of the system or a failure of government, but it instead is actually much more kind of a feature. And as we would say, or as Sara would say in talking digital products, right? A feature, not a bug. And there's a perception by all of us as citizens everywhere in the world, no matter what city you live in. I'm sure you have some level of dissatisfaction or distrust with your local government, right? And there's this sense that is in and of itself like a flaw, and that's a bug in the system, right? And that these systems are supposed to work. They're supposed to be magically efficient. They're supposed to do the things we want them to do the way we want them to do them. And in truth, if you study history, or if you study it at the feet of a book like this that we're sharing with you this week, both Nithya from a governmental standpoint and Sara from a commercial capitalistic standpoint are telling us and reminding us what this book is already validating through decades of research of big, quote unquote, like mega projects across every industry sector, every size, every market, both private sector, public sector, blended private sector, public sector combinations, privately funded, publicly funded. We're just not typically, historically, all of us, any of us, anywhere, very good at getting complex things done or understanding the nuances of complex things. So that's it. That's my big takeaway for the week. I'm going to just preach that we should all be a bit more patient. We should all be a bit more long-term thinkers. We should all be a bit more maybe pragmatically optimistic. So, I'm a pragmatic optimist. I've talked about that with you here before. I say that means that we are aware of the conditions on the ground around us while we choose to lean into what's possible, right? So I think there are lots of people that are either optimists or pessimists and view themselves that way. And I would add, if we could just add that pragmatic layer to the optimism, then that's a healthier optimism, right? We can still be hopeful and we can still aspire to get things done. And this book and both these conversations illustrate that great things do get done and great complex things do get built. They just take a lot of time, and they take a lot of patience, and they take a lot of kind of pragmatic understanding. So inject that into your leadership this week at work, in your career, in your entrepreneurial pursuits. Inject that into your personal life as you see fit. Enjoy the hell out of this episode with Sara. Enjoy this upcoming episode that I will come back and visit, and we'll talk more about with Nithya Raman, Councilperson Raman. And then go check out this book because Thomas was spot on. This is an incredible book. I think it's useful for any entrepreneurial thinker in any context in today's world. And by the way, Hopefully Deanna's super happy that I did a better job holding the mic away from my clothing so that it doesn't make as much noise, but we'll see. We are so grateful to be supported by sponsors like our friends at eSudo. You know, running any business, but especially a law firm, means balancing a lot. And technology, frankly, shouldn't be a headache. eSudo makes information technology and cybersecurity simple for law firms large or small. With over 20 years of experience, they specialize in everything from Microsoft 365 management to advanced cybersecurity solutions. They help you to stay ahead of threats, manage your data securely, and keep your tech running smoothly so that you can focus on what matters most, your clients. eSudo understands the legal industry's unique needs, offering tailored solutions to ensure that your firm is always in compliance and always protected. Are you ready to upgrade your firm's technology or get help with your questions? Visit esudo.com.